This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Atom Audio, Isotope, Native Instruments, Empirical Labs, Sound Porter Mastering, and Trace Audio. You're hearing my voice right now through custom Trace Audio cables and the new Empirical Labs pump compressor mixed through Isotope RX, Ozone, Neutron, Nectar, and Plasma, all mixed on Atom Audio monitors. Please check out our awesome sponsors using the links in the show notes. It's a great way to help support this show. Now get ready to rock.
That's how I became brave enough to call myself a producer, is from mixing a lot of stuff and knowing where things were going to be as we were doing it or even before. If someone comes up with a part and I'm not real sure where this is going to go in the mix, maybe it doesn't need to be there, so maybe I'll help make that decision.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Atom Audio proudly announces the D3V active desktop monitors and H200 dynamic closed-back studio headphones, designed in Berlin for pro-level monitoring in home studios. The D3V features 3.5-inch woofers with ribbon tweeters for studio-quality sound in a compact design ideal for songwriters and producers. The D3V includes USB-C and balanced analog inputs, a headphone output, and DSP room acoustics. The H200 closed-back headphones feature powerful 32-ohm drivers and comfortable ear pads in a durable metal construction, making them perfect for studio or portable use. The included plug-in enhances tonal control and stereo spatialization, so you never have to leave the sweet spot at atomaudio.com. At Isotope, saturation just got a whole lot smarter. Introducing the new Isotope Plasma plugin to supercharge your sound by giving your tracks exactly what they need, precisely when and where they need it. Unlike traditional saturators that apply a static effect, Plasma's groundbreaking flux saturation technology analyzes your sound and applies dynamic processing, adding targeted warmth, depth, and character to bring out the best in your mixes and masters. Use the secret code ROCK10 to get 10% off the new Plasma or any of the awesome plugins at isotope.com. Howdy Rockstars, it's your host Lid Shaw. Welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Jeremy Stevens, a music producer and mixer based in North Alabama, about an hour and a half south of Nashville. Jeremy has had the honor of collaborating with some of the greatest musicians on earth, from the Alabama Shakes to Jason Isbell, Gregg Allman to Chuck Leavell. In Jeremy's words, I learned the art of producing and recording from legendary rock producer Johnny Sandlin. He served as Johnny's right-hand man for many years, learning everything there is to know about making a goddamn good record. In 2001, Jeremy started Clearwave Recording Studio as a cost-effective place to craft records on his own terms. It quickly became a sonic sanctuary for indie rock, Americana, and a fresh alternative to the cookie-cutter Nashville thing. This quote, again, this is a place where creative souls thrive, where the ideas come to life, and where being different ain't just okay, it's downright expected. The goal here is to make hit records and win Grammys, and to do it the right way. Jeremy remains convinced that with the right approach, anything is possible. That's why he focuses on capturing the very best performances of great songs and gives the musicians the freedom to explore and create. Very psyched to have Jeremy here today. A big thank you to Gregg Allman for making our introduction. Please welcome Jeremy Stevens to Recording Studio Rockstars. Jeremy, are you ready to rock, dude?
I am ready to rock.
Glad to have you here at the show, man. Welcome to the studio. We're in studio today, so you actually drove up from Alabama. Thanks for doing the long commute.
Well, it's it's good to have the opportunity to leave and have somewhere to go. I feel like I'm, trapped in the studio a lot.
Yeah.
So
I know that feeling. I feel that way a lot. I mean, we build these dream sanctuaries for music, and then all of a sudden one day we look around and we're like, shit, I'm sitting in a room without windows all day long, and it's a nice sunny day outside or something,
Yeah. Well, I have 2 windows, but both of them are covered over with plywood and sound dampening.
Right. If it was too nice, we move into a space and we're like, this is too bright and lovely.
Yeah.
Let's seal ourselves in, close off all the sound, seal the air from outside, and shut out all the light.
I would love a skylight. I've been, trying to figure out for 20 years how to, put a skylight in that place.
I looked into that stuff. I can't remember if it was for my house or for my studio when I was first thinking about these same questions. And I arrived at some stuff that I thought was kind of interesting. There are companies that make skylight tubes rather than traditional, openable windows. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I think with skylights is that they can leak.
Yeah.
So they can become, a hazard that way. And then if you get the leak right, then of course you just added another window that needs to be maybe soundproofed. But like a skylight that has a tube that just sort of lets a funnel of light in. They also make ones that are like optical fiber.
Yeah.
Where like the fiber comes out and almost makes a blooming what do you call chandelier?
Well, I have a bunch of unused ADAT cables somewhere.
There you go. That would be amazing. Just to start making ADAT chandeliers. Yeah. I bet that's a product everybody would want in their studio, right?
Yeah.
Well, so tell us a little bit more about yourself, man. Give us the brief version of your, starting music to having a studio where you're at now, Clearwave, which looks like a really cool spot.
Well, thank you. Well, I grew up in a musical house. Both my parents were music teachers, and I have an older brother who's a really good musician. And, growing up, everybody was always, going to gigs and shows. And
this was all in Alabama?
Yeah.
Like near Decatur, where you are now?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, right. Everything was in Decatur. But yeah, it was just kind of the lifestyle of our family was to do all this music stuff. So I guess it all, trickled down to me. And, I became obsessed with music.
What were the instruments that your parents played?
Well, my father, he played saxophone, and he sang. He was a singer. And then my mother, she's still around. She plays, she played violin and piano. And both of them taught lessons out of our house.
Those are both instruments that hurt to learn to play, right?
Yeah.
Saxophone, you have to learn to bite your lip. And You're like, what the hell is this?
Yes.
And violin, you have to learn how to make sounds that don't sound like creatures are dying.
Yes. Yeah, I've when I was a teenager, I would sleep late, to like noon. And then, in the next room over, I'll hear like, my mom's over there, teaching some kid how to hold a bow.
Yeah, that kid was me. I was taking Suzuki lessons when I was little.
Yeah. The Suzuki.
I knew how to make it sound bad. First thing I learned on violin was how to make it sound really bad.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of that.
Did you pick up either of those instruments yourself?
Well, I did start playing saxophone, went through the school program, the band program, played saxophone. I was never very good at the saxophone. I could play in tune, but I just wasn't very good at reading music. And I wanted to be good. I mean, and I started listening to like rock and roll saxophone, like stuff from the 50s. And, that's what I wanted
Bobby
to
Keys.
do.
Well, no, that's a little later, right?
Yeah, well, Stones, but I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And, jazz, kind of got into jazz a little bit, and Coltrane. And
cool thing about rock and roll saxophone is that the reed gives that ability to almost have an acoustic distortion pedal for the instrument, right?
Yeah.
Kind of
I
gives
never
it that.
learned how to do that.
Yeah. Well, right on. So then would you pick up guitar?
Well, I started playing the bass because we had one, and my brother, he started playing the bass at one point, but then he kind of gave it up, I guess, and it sat in the corner, and I don't know, it kind of drew me in.
What was the first bass for you?
The first bass?
Yeah, you remember?
It was it was like it was called Global. It was a Global bass. Ever heard of Global?
No.
Yeah, it was
So
just
some kind of Southern thing.
No, it was. I'm sure it was. A very cheap, inexpensive bass.
Yeah.
But it got me started.
A pick or fingers?
Fingers. Yeah. I started with the fingers on. There was one guy down the street from me who was also learning to play bass, my age, and I learned a little bit from him.
Do you remember first learning about like finger bass versus playing with a pick?
I mean, I took lessons shortly after, I started playing bass. And, I remember my teacher always played with his fingers, and that's probably, where I got it from.
Yeah. I don't remember what I started with, probably a pick, but I remember somebody sort of like intimating that like, oh, you got to play with your fingers, don't play with the pick. And then later, so like, in other words, first being introduced to the idea as if one was, so many things you learn about at the very beginning, you're like, you learn it as if something's right and something else is wrong. And then later you're like, that's a big pile of bullshit. Like every single different way of doing it is totally great.
Well, I always approached bass like the left hand of a piano, because I started taking piano lessons at the same time. I had all this interest in music all at once,
Yeah.
So, I was learning piano, I was learning bass at the same time, and I never really played guitar very much. I never thought of it as related to a guitar very much.
You never thought of the bass as part of it, right? You thought of it as related to the left hand of a piano, not to the bottom of a guitar.
Right.
That's probably a smart way to learn it,
I guess.
That makes me think that you started thinking about the bass as part of the arrangement rather than just, I don't know what. Like when I picked it up, I had already played guitar. I just started soloing on the bass.
Oh, yeah.
I learned that's not how you play bass. I just wanted to like noodle all over the place.
Yeah, guitar players who play bass can be a little bit irritating.
Well, I mean, it's you have to sort of like unlearn fanciness.
Oh yeah,
There's like a huge power in learning how to play minimal notes on a bass really well, and it's fucking hard. Like to just play the right note at the right time is hard, because when you miss that, you can't go back and replay it.
Yeah, one of my favorite bass players is Sting. Sting has always been one of my favorite rock stars, and he's just a great bass player. And it's so simple what he plays, but it's, very musical, and it really inspired me a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I listened to Sting.
Any like top favorite song of his that comes to mind right off the bat?
I mean, not really
like Zenyatta Mandata, kind of that time frame.
I kind of learned Sting backwards. I learned his solo stuff first, and then I learned
really
about the Police. I tend to learn music backwards. So yeah, it was his solo stuff.
Yeah.
Tim Sumner's Tale, that album.
Yeah, Dream of the Blue Turtles and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the Police, those early records inspired the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
For wanting to play in a band, and like
Yeah.
that ability to play what I think of as syncopated bass at times with, these great vocal parts that are really pushing the limits. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So when I think about bass, when we were talking about the fingers versus pick, I hear that on some of your records, and Rockstars, we have Jeremy's discography in the show notes, so you can just scroll down and click on it and go listen to these records, because it's a great cross section of stuff, from awesome sounding groove based soul records to indie / classic rock sounding stuff, sort of power pop leaning, and punk rock. So it's a real variety of records, and they sound great, man. Listening to them in the car and cranking it up, getting coffee this morning. But like Lamont Landers, that's one of the artists that's in there, and Love and Lust particularly. I got a few things to say about that track, but the bass in particular sounds like this really fat, round, kind of almost muted thumb bass part, right? Versus I don't remember whether it was Camacho, which if I have that one right, which sounds more like a picked bass, like chiming guitars and bass part. Talk a little bit about that. So tell us about some of those records. Tell us about Lamont Landers.
Okay. Well, Lamont, he kind of had a, rotating bass player. It was a while, it took a while for them to settle on a bass player. But that particular song, that was Draven Hill. And the bass that's the bass that belongs to the studio. And it's a, here's a shocker. It's a Sting bass.
As in Sting the artist?
Yeah, as in Sting. It's a bass that Fender made, which is basically it's like a Fender 54 reissue. It's Japanese-made bass. It had
like
flat
P-bass or
P-bass. And, may have had a little bit of foam, stuck in between under the strings.
Right. Talk about that, because that's a great trick. And I remember discovering some of these things early on in recording. So what is that? And maybe describe that.
It's, sometimes if you have a bass that's too zingy or whatever, or the notes just sustain forever and you want something a little more thumpy.
Like the notes are shorter length.
Yeah. And if you want them a little rounder, a lot of times people think of James Jamerson, that sort of thing. But I just stick a little piece of foam underneath the strings, usually next to the bridge. That's something I learned from, Sandlin. Johnny Sandlin used to do that.
Who's Johnny? Tell us about Johnny.
Johnny's my mentor. He's
right.
Who I learned, how to record. And
did he have a studio in Decatur or something?
Yeah, he had a little studio called Duck Tape Studio in Decatur. And so I learned how to be a recording engineer, kind of a old-fashioned way, from a guy who made records. And Johnny became notable because he produced the Allman Brothers Band and Brothers and Sisters, Jessica and Ramblin' Man and all that stuff. And then later on did, Widespread Panic, some of their records, and Hampton and their Creme Rescue Unit. He did a couple of their albums.
Oh, right on. Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was that the one with the fish, the aquarium on it? I totally know that record. That's when I was introduced to those guys. So were you working on that with him?
No, I missed that era. But
right, because that was early 90s when I was at MTSU.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they would come and play there.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I found out who Johnny was. It wasn't from the Allman Brothers Band or any of the old stuff. I was kind of digging Widespread Panic and Colonel Bruce, and Did
Yeah.
this album with the Dixie Dregs around that time.
Native Instruments introduces the new Complete 15 bundle, featuring Contact 8, offering versatile synths, sampled instruments, and innovative effects, perfect for creating everything from emotional scores to dance floor grooves. Contact 8 includes exciting new creative tools like chords and phrases for inspiration, the Leap tool for dynamic looping, and Conflux, a hybrid instrument blending organic and synth sounds. The Complete 15 bundle also includes updated Massive X, Guitar Rig 7 Pro, and AI-enhanced Isotope Ozone 11. Use the code ROCK10 for 10% off at nativeinstruments.com. Empirical Labs, creators of the famous Distressor, offer high-performance gear for audio pros. The Fatso adds warmth to digital recordings with harmonic generation, tape emulation, and compression. The Pump, a 500 series compressor, features 8 selectable ratios, precise attack and release controls, saturation, and an attack mod for incredible transient control. The Arouser and Big Freak plugins are also available at empiricallabs.com, where you can use the coupon code RSR10 for 10% off. Follow at Empirical Labs on Instagram, making studio gear that works a little easier, a little better, and a lot longer. Oh, he did, really? Dixie Dregs came in to do one with him at that point? Steve Morse?
He did a live, I believe it was a live album with Dixie Dregs.
That's great. Yeah, I remember discovering Steve Morse, and
Yeah.
a buddy of mine turned me on to, came to St. Louis and played a show in the 80s, and we just got to sit there. It was like a small room. We got to basically just sit there on the floor in front of his pedal board.
Yeah.
And I was just like, look at all those pedals. So dialed in. It was like they were all what looked like volume pedals, so you could just like bring in more of anything, you know? Well, cool stuff. So then, were you sort of inspired by O'Teal Burbridge and his bass player and all that?
Yeah, he was my favorite bass player.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Did you hear we had Al Evans on recently talking about making that record with O'Teal.
That's amazing.
Iceland of all places.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun. All right. Well, tell some more stories about working with Johnny and stuff too, like about starting out. And what was some of the first stuff you remember learning on a session over there?
Well, when I was in college, I learned that he was looking to hire somebody in his studio. And of course, you know, I felt like that was going to be a dream job for me, you know, and of course it was. And
where were you in college?
This was at UNA, University of North Alabama.
That's in Florence?
It's in Florence.
Right.
Yeah. And so I learned that he was looking to hire somebody. And I kind of had known him a little bit beforehand because in high school I worked at this music store, and occasionally maybe he would come in or, you know, needed to borrow something or whatever. But anyway, long story short, he hired me and he taught me how to be a recording, like a assistant engineer.
Yeah.
And so.
What kind of stuff did an assistant engineer do back then?
Well, it was, like keeping up with tapes, track sheets was a big deal. Working the patch bay, labeling the console, setting up for sessions, that sort of thing. Kind of keeping your eyeballs open. If a musician is kind of struggling with their headphones or something, just pop up and help them fix it, and stay out of the way. But looking back on it, it was after working for Johnny for like just a few weeks, I found myself being a assistant engineer on a major label rock record, and working 80, 90 hours a week, and just loved it.
What was that record?
That was a Gregg Allman record.
Oh, no shit. Wow.
And yeah, we did this Gregg Allman record, and it just all at once, I'm being introduced with these great musicians, and uh, the guitar player was Jack Pearson and Kelvin Holly. Derek Trucks played on the very young Derek Trucks played on a few albums. O'Teal played bass on a few things, but it was mostly David Hood from the Muscle Shoals. So it was kind of like these old Macon guys plus some Muscle Shoals guys, and maybe some of Gregg's people. And it was just kind of the circus of doing a rock record.
What do you remember about Gregg Allman and the way he was set up for a session like that? Anything strike you?
What do you mean as far as?
Well, I mean, you just walk in and plug in was there something special about the guitar or the amp or the mic or anything that you were like, oh, that's how you get that sound?
Well, it was kind of I don't know if I should mention this, but you can edit it out. But it was kind of a dark time for Gregg. He was suffering from, alcoholism. And this was 1995. And it was around that same time they were introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And, according to Gregg's book, that was his, lowest
Wow.
point, It was like, wait, I recorded you 2 days before that. And then 2 days after that,
So you kind of remember, so you read the book later and it sort of like put that whole experience in context for you.
Yeah. But, supposedly he pulled through and, got better, but.
Right on. And then how about Derek Trucks? Anything you remember about
he was super young, super quiet, he was probably 17. Heck, I was 19, but yeah, he was Derek Trucks. He nailed it, he just monster came out of this little kid, this monster guitar sound. I remember he played a little Washburn guitar. He had to deal with Washburn guitars back then.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, you do a lot of electric guitars. The records in your discography, whether it's James Irvin or Drop Diver, Camacho. Is that how you say it? Camacho?
Camacho, yeah.
Yeah. Cool band records, Lamont Landers, leaning a little more soul, but what are some in a great variety of electric guitar sounds too? What are some things about recording electric guitar that you remember picking up on when you were starting out with Johnny, and then also things you try now, or maybe some things just like stay the same?
Electric guitar, I don't know if a whole lot has changed. Kind of, I don't have a super, extravagant guitar collection or a guitar amp collection. I have a few things, usually guitar players, you guys like to bring your own amp, at least.
Right.
It's part of your sound. But I do keep a few things around. But, recording guitar, my general approach is, I'll take a 57 and something else, and that, I'll take two mics and kind of tape them together. And usually the second mic is a Heil PR30. And just cram it into where I think it will sound good on the amp. And usually I'll blend those together and bust them together on the console. And
R.I.P. Bob Heil.
Oh yeah, I heard about that
this year.
Yeah,
that's that. He also invented the talk box.
That's right,
the Heil talk box. But I don't think anything to do with the Heil dump trucks that you see driving around too. I think that might be a different, brand. And so the PR30, that was one of his mics. I know that the Heil mics, they were actually getting a lot of shout outs for podcast mics.
Oh, okay.
When I first started podcasting, people were really raving about them.
Mm-hmm. I love the PR30. That's my favorite electric guitar mic. And I don't know what's going to happen to the company. I guess, I don't know, what his...
It's a dynamic.
Yeah.
And so that's cool. So that's a new concept for this podcast. So taking a 57 and another mic and literally taping them together, does that make it so that you can put them in one clip as well?
Yeah,
Kind
it
of.
does. Yeah.
And then what's the benefit of having them so close together like that?
Just phase, I try to line it up where the capsules, it looks like,
They're
they're the same distance from the
sounds hitting them
cone.
at the same time.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
thing.
And, they both, each mic is kind of has a different voicing to it, and you can really dial in the tone of the guitar pretty quickly. It's actually easier to use than EQ, sometimes I'll just use one of the mics, and sometimes I'll use both of them together. And sometimes I don't even know which mic is which, really. I just plug it in and
Right. You're just listening.
I don't need to know,
Yeah.
If one of them really sounds bad and doesn't work, then I'll try a third mic,
What would a third mic, what kind of mic would you reach for as a third one? Like a condenser or a ribbon?
A ribbon. From my experience, if one doesn't work, it's because it's too bright.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a few ribbon mics that are pretty good candidates. That kind of tone it
give
down.
us some options to consider.
I have some mics from Alder Audio. The H44.
Yeah. I've got those too. The 44, right?
Yeah, H44. Exactly.
H44. Yeah. Let me pull them up too. So those are interesting mics because, they're interesting for a few reasons. One is they've got a mic that's typically, I guess, a ribbon, it's figure 8. So the front and the back are typically the same or the same-ish, right? Sounding.
Yeah.
Matched on either side. But they voice them, one of them where it's a little more voiced warmer on the backside for vocals, so you can flip it around and try different sides of it, right?
Yeah.
That's the H44. I think that's just the straight H44 does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever flip it around and try the different sides on it?
Not too often.
Do you just put it up and then you're like, I don't even know which side it is?
No. It just seems... my trouble with ribbon mics is sometimes they're too dark.
Yeah.
And I want it to be as bright as it can be.
Yeah, you want a little crunch, a little grab out of the guitars.
Yeah.
Do you find that the ribbons tend to be more useful for sessions like the Lamont records, the Lamont Landers records, where like a warmer soul tone is what you're going for versus the rock stuff? Like if it was a punk band like Drop Diver, you think you're leaning on 57s on that stuff?
Because sometimes like a punk band who's really, I'm thinking of cymbals, maybe front overheads. If they're just bashing on cymbals and it's so bright, that's when you want to put, or when I want to put ribbon mics up. And kind of tame down the bright stuff. These punk bands sound bright out of the box, they come through the door sounding bright, and Lamont comes through the door sounding, dark and cozy.
I think that's great advice too. One of the reasons I actually got my Alder H44S mics, I think the S are the ones that are the same on both sides, and the 44 maybe is voice. Apologies if I mix that up, but I wanted to the same thing. I wanted to be able to have more control over the cymbals on records. And it really does really help. It really works well for bash and rock records to have ribbons as overheads. The challenge for me has always been, when do you make that decision on a session?
I have I don't want to say default, but, I do have, we all have our starting points, when you're setting up for a session. And, my overhead starting point is large diaphragm condensers.
Yeah.
That's what I'm used to using. And if that doesn't work, then we'll, try something else.
Well, can you describe how you hear the sound of large diaphragm condensers as overheads on drums? Like, what does that sound? What should we expect to hear as a sound?
I would say a very natural representation of the drum set.
Right, like we're hearing the drums, we're hearing getting cymbals, but we're also just hearing
Yeah.
the shells, the whole drum kit.
Yeah, snare, everything.
Kind of old school, like an old Glyn Johns recording, or something from that era.
Yeah,
like where the drum set, the kit sound is coming through those overheads.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then, do you sometimes try and get drum sounds where you're like really hoping that all you're getting through the overheads is really the cymbal information?
Maybe not usually. I have a small drum booth. My drum booth is probably about the same size of this room. I don't know.
We're in the podcast studio here today, Rockstars, aka Podzilla.
Yeah.
Or Pod Damn It.
But
what do you think we should call this studio, Jeremy?
I don't say the Jeremy Stevens, Memorial Podcast Studio.
All right, I like that, man. That's getting written down right there. And then Rockstars, drop a comment in and let us know what we should name the podcast.
Or Daisy. Daisy's
Daisy
Dope Studio.
Daisy Do Studios. Podcast booth. She's really behaving well. She's quiet today. That's good. What about small diaphragms for overheads on drums?
I use those a little bit sometimes. Lately I've kind of gotten away from those a little bit.
I feel like small diaphragms add more bright crispness to to stuff. Sometimes they work great for rock cymbals, though. I don't know why, because it seems like they'd be brighter, but I think it's the transient.
Yeah, they're faster, maybe.
They're faster, so they don't sort of fall to pieces. Like a large diaphragm might on fast cymbal stuff, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I did a kind of a live in the studio recording the other day with, and I put everybody was in my main room. So you had drums, and to the drummer's left was a super loud guitar amp, and then to the right was just an SVT,
Just rocking out.
Rocking out.
810 cabinet?
Yes, absolutely. And for that, I put up some small diaphragm condensers. And
so in that reasoning might be that the big ones are just capturing too much.
Yeah,
there's already so much in the room.
I wanted to isolate the drums and cymbals.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how isolated they were. Sitting just feet away from, a giant, Marshall cabinet.
Someone asked me a while back, do you fear AI will one day replace you as a mastering engineer? Well, it hasn't yet. That's because algorithms don't listen to music or to clients. Hi, I'm Brian Murphy of Sound Porter Mastering. When I master, I experience the music as your fans will, with the honesty of fresh ears. And unlike AI, I master with your intentions in mind, not merely to process the mix and boost the levels. If you want an experienced live engineer to master your music as only a human can, find me at soundporter.com.
Sick of searching for the right cable or wondering how to hook up your studio? Trace Audio has you covered. Based in Nashville but serving studios everywhere, Trace Audio specializes in custom cables, patch bay labels, and wiring solutions for home and pro studios. Try out the free online custom patch bay label designer at traceaudio.com to easily color code, label, and organize your XLR or quarter-inch bays, which are popular with home studios. It's sleek, professional, and simple to use. Then use the code RSR15 for 15% off printing and shipping your custom patch bay labels to take your studio to the next level. Now, what about the direction of the amps? Do you have the amps sort of parallel to the kick drum, like a stage setup?
Yeah, it was like a stage. It was actually for video, so it was like set up so it would look like they were playing on a stage.
Right. And the amps aren't pointed towards the drums. They're pointed sort of away from it, or towards the cameras.
They were kind of.
And how big's your room when you're describing this stuff?
It's not a huge room, but it's, it's about the size of, two decent sized living rooms together. I don't know, 24 by 20 or something like that. I mean, it's a
Okay.
decent size. And then the ceilings are 10 feet.
Okay.
Ceilings in there.
And then do you do treatments in the live room?
I mean,
Stuff that helps it out.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, but it's just kind of nothing scientific about it,
Is it like drywall construction or
Yeah,
wood?
Yeah, very drywall. And, just acoustic tile ceilings.
Right, okay. So it's a drop ceiling.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yes. But there is some treatment above the drop ceiling, just because the building I'm in was a studio before I moved in it, and that's just what they did.
Meaning there's insulation tucked up in there or something like that?
Just like a couple of layers of insulation.
What kind? Pink insulation?
Yeah, just the nasty stuff.
Nasty stuff. Yeah, the don't touch it stuff.
Yeah, but I have some panels, that I built, similar to these in there, and there's
just
a couch.
Like 703.
Oh yeah, 703
rigid
stuff.
Insulation.
So I have a few of those. I built mine. These look like you did that too, but where they come off, did they come off the wall and you can use it?
So I've got a variety in my studio, Rockstars. Well, Jeremy's pointing at these ones that are wooden frames with the fabric kind of tucked on the front, and then a piece of 703, one or two inside the frame. And then it was this whole idea of like what's called a French cleat. So it was meant to be like a wooden piece that goes along the wall, and then you could hook almost like hanging a painting on a hook. You could just hook the panel on it and move it around. But the problem was like we did this whole fancy fucking thing, and then we moved the sound panels exactly 0 times the entire time I had it up there. So I was like, that was a waste. And plus these wooden ones, like so expensive to have somebody like fabricate these elaborate wooden things. They look great.
They did look very nice.
But I mean, so therefore I didn't throw them away. So therefore they moved up to my podcast studio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Got recycled.
Okay. Well, I did a similar thing where they can be, taken off the wall easily. They're not very heavy and used as a gobo or something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking
I've done
about
that like twice in 20 years.
Right, exactly. Sometimes it's funny how like sometimes you have these big elaborate ideas in the studio, and then it doesn't get used. It happens with instruments too. Sometimes I'll get some modular synth and I'm all excited about it, and then I'm like, how many times have I used that on a record?
Yeah,
I remember I can pinpoint the overdub that we did.
Or pedals. You ever do that with pedals?
Yeah, I still feel like it's worth it though.
Man, if you can have some weird instrument that for some reason someone walks up to it in your studio and the wheels start turning and they start to curate, it's instantly worth it.
Yeah. You're like, and then later you're like, that was a $500 overdub, right?
Yeah.
Because that sound only happened once on your record. Still, I mean, we can always part with it later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I do that with, anytime me and my wife go somewhere exotic, if there's some weird percussion instrument or some sort of, just interesting noisemaker, and I'll buy it. And it's $50, but, some guy's going to come in the studio and spend half a day trying to, it's going to pay for itself at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. At least you get to go to exotic places.
Well, not really exotic. I'm from Alabama, so
is that exotic to begin with? Do you want to describe Alabama a little bit, or where you're from? I mean, maybe that's hard to do because you grew up there, but maybe talk about the music scene down there a little bit.
Well,
I'll preface it by saying when I looked at the map, I realized I'd been coming and going from Muscle Shoals a little.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one way to get there, but there's not a direct way. But Decatur is kind of a straight shot. It's pretty direct right down the highway.
Probably
from here.
35 minutes away. Decatur itself is very, it's very industrial, very blue collar. It's a gritty town, very diverse. And musically, there's some really great musicians that come out of there. I mean, there's still people who could come out of the woodwork that I can't believe this background singer is such a good singer, Um, and the churches are very active, it's still the
Right.
old South, So, you have and some of these churches are just musician factories, you got the white people church where they're playing acoustic guitars and everybody's waving their hands and stuff.
And everything sounds like a U2 outro.
Yeah, exactly. And they churn out all these amazing guitar players and singers. And the black folk churches, they have like, it seems like everybody plays a Hammond B3, like the best you've ever heard,
Yeah.
And they've churned out just incredible drummers. And it's just a cycle. You'll see some new drummer come out of that church, and next thing you know, they're on the road with, Justin Bieber or something, and you never see him again. You never see him on the Grammys or something.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I feel like I sort of in my brain I conjure up an image of somebody playing just like a potentially really ratty drum kit, but just making it sound great. Like not being afraid to just hit it hard and
man,
make it sound awesome.
But that's Decatur. To the west of us is Huntsville, Alabama, and Huntsville's, very up and coming, kind of this booming city. It's probably not what you would think typical Alabama. It's a very modern city, and everything's new there. And there's a pretty thriving like indie rock scene. These young professionals coming in. So
in Decatur or in Huntsville?
That's in Huntsville. Yeah. And
I was down in Huntsville a couple of times not long ago. And it's beautiful looking architecture too, just old school. Of course it's got a long history too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Whole civil rights history down there as well and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, we went out to go get food and just ended up like at a Mellow Mushroom pizza place.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pretty delicious pizza.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So then, what about the bands that you were playing in too? I mean, and are you still playing? Do you
Not
play
really.
on sessions?
Not really. I've kind of, stopped playing in bands so much. I love being in the studio and being a recording engineer, and that's where I'll be. But definitely grew up in playing in bands and stuff.
Tell us more about your studio. So what's the control room look like when you're surrounded? Are you in the world of consoles and tape machines? Are you all in the computer?
Well, the studio, it's probably, there's 6 rooms, fairly decent size tracking room. There's a drum booth, vocal booth, control room. And then there's like this closet area, for like a guitar isolation type booth. And then the bathroom. So if you have 4 guitar players in your band, somebody's going to have their amp in the bathroom. But no, it's very the basic studio. It's very kind of an old school design. There's a console, tape machine, 24 track, 2-inch tape machine, a mix down tape machine, outboard rack of stuff, and then the laptop that just sits on top. I do everything on the laptop pretty much. It seems like sometimes.
So that's fascinating. So as you pair up the analog recording world with the digital Pro Tools?
Logic
world. Okay, cool. Right on. Then you find that like all you need for that Logic computer world is just a good enough laptop.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just sitting on top of the console or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I like about a laptop. You can kind of move it around just wherever you feel like you want it that day. I don't, when I listen, I don't really want to look at a screen when I listen.
Yeah.
So quite often, usually I'll put it off to the side.
How do you integrate Logic with the rest of the studio? Do you have the laptop talking to some kind of interface and then multi-track outputs to the console for mixing?
I use the Apollo stuff, Universal Audio, Apollo 24.
Yeah.
24 inputs, 24 outputs.
But you break it out to a console?
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's not a given. You got to let us know.
Yeah. Not always. I mean, usually if I'm tracking a band, it works like a tape machine, and then as, things progress, I'll drop it down to the virtual mixer.
Right. So the tracking session is like traditional console world.
Pretty much.
And then when we get into overdubs for the ease of jumping from session to session and adding tracks without having to think about it, we're sort of in the two mix output of the computer at that point.
Exactly. Yes.
Do you like the two mix output of the computer, or do you sort of immediately miss the sound of the console?
I
when you have to switch?
I like the way the computer sounds.
Right on.
It's always a little bit different, but different doesn't mean better or worse. Different is just different.
Yeah, it's good to hear you say that, because as I was showing you my studio and I was describing, what it used to be with the old MCI console, which was awesome, but switching, the conclusion for me that made me feel so much better about it was I could let go of worrying about better versus worse. It's just different. It's like a new set of colors to work with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then what about when you go to mix? Do you like to stay in the computer all the way through to the finish line at that point? Or do you like to come back to the console again?
If everything goes well, I'm going to mix it in the computer.
Okay. Well, the records sound great. So,
well, thank you.
It's always encouraging to hear that description.
I mean, sometimes, if I'm mixing, my first choice is to mix in the computer.
Yeah.
But sometimes, if something isn't coming together or just isn't gelling or whatever, and I just need a reset, sometimes I will just, all right, screw it. I'm going to, let's go to faders, do it the old school way, just a different approach.
Working in Logic, but paired up with the Apollo, were you tempted sometimes to sort of explore using Luna by UAD?
Yes. And, I need to give it another chance because I started using Luna. It wasn't too long after it first came out,
Right.
And it seemed kind of immature at the time. I just felt like Logic was so much more polished, and, plus, switching DAW is like the worst thing you can do in the music business. It's the most frustrating thing.
I always equate it to learning one of your favorite video games and you've got the controller down to muscle memory, and then you go to your friend's house and they're like, play my game, and everything's all weird and backwards. And you're like, hey, this game sucks.
It will do it. I know it does it.
But then you watch them play and you're like, but I don't know, when you play it, it looks pretty cool, but I just can't figure it out.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I know. I need to revisit Luna.
Well, it's fun to dabble in all these different things. I like doing it. I don't often switch everything up, but I love going to just try something out.
I've been thinking about doing that, especially, start with something simple like that live thing I was just telling you about. I mean, it's got to be mixed, and it's not going to be a very complicated mix because it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to do a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. Like to try something new, start with a project that doesn't require great complexity in the routing and stuff like that, or complex editing. I feel like editing is a place where it's easy to get tripped up because all the buttons are different. And then routing could be tricky because it's just hard to, we have to, when we use this stuff, so much of what's going on in the computer, we're like constructing a 3D model in our head for what's happening to know that everything's doing it right, I feel, at least that's the way my brain works. So like when I'm on some other platform, my brain's confused because I don't know what the hell it's doing, I feel like another place that's been helpful to try out a whole new system is just demoing out for fun a new song idea. Where it's like the pressure's off, it's just like, I'm just coming up with something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and then sometimes the sound you arrive at is a little bit accidental, and then you get a chance to hear it.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember messing with Studio One and recording some songs in there, and afterwards I was like, man, those sound great. You know?
Oh yeah.
So you got a great sound. Right now. iZotope is truly amazing for mixing and mastering your music. Like the new iZotope Plasma plugin, featuring flux saturation, which helps you sculpt the harmonics in your sound, enhancing the excitement and clarity of your tracks or mixes. And Ozone, with its built-in mastering assistant, helps you analyze your mix, suggesting all the settings you need for a professionally mastered result based on your chosen style of music and EQ curve, referencing a specific song if you want. Ozone features sophisticated yet simple modules like clarity, impact, low-end focus, stabilizer, imager, exciter, and spectral shaping, along with powerful dynamic EQ, compression, and limiting, allowing you to adjust the settings to your taste so it sounds incredible. And with the magic of master rebalance, you can even manipulate the vocal, bass, and drums separately at the mastering stage. Use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off Plasma Ozone RX or any of the fantastic plugins at iZotope.com. Adam Audio is proud to announce the new D3V active desktop monitor system and H200 dynamic closeback studio headphones designed in Berlin and perfect for pro-level monitoring in a home studio setting. The D3V is a fully active desktop monitoring system featuring 3.5-inch woofers and hand-folded ribbon tweeters for studio-quality sound in a compact form in elegant white or black finish. It's perfect for songwriters, producers, podcasters, and mixers with digital input over USB-C or balanced analog inputs and includes a headphone output and DSP room acoustic switches. The H200 is Adam Audio's new closed-back studio headphone, featuring 40mm peak drivers and memory foam ear pads in a durable metal construction with a detachable main cable for dual-sided connectivity, making the H200s reliable for demanding studio use. With an impedance of just 32 ohms, they will sound great with your studio or laptop and include a plug-in for enhanced tonal control and stereo spatialization, so you never have to leave the sweet spot. To see the new D3V monitors and H200 headphones, go to adamaudio.com. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. My guest today is Jeremy Stevens, joining us here at the Jeremy Stevens Memorial Podcast Studio.
All right. I made it.
You ready to jam?
I am ready to jam.
Sweet. B3 organ or whatever it is that you've got in your studio. You got some great organ recordings on these records.
Oh, thank you.
What do we want to know about miking up, recording an organ like that, making it sound good in the recording / mix, maybe even stuff that people need to remember when they sit down and play an organ for the first time?
Some ideas on that. First of all, I've always, my entire life, wanted to have a studio with a B3 in it. You know, in the place I'm at now, I felt like you can either have a B3 or a piano. One or the other because of space. And of course, I opted for the B3. And it's, you know, I lucked up, you know, it's, I'm not sure exactly what year it is, but it's probably a 55. I think it's a 55 B3.
Wow.
And the only reason why I know that, if you lift up the bench and there's a little maintenance record, and the first one that some guy who oiled whatever signed, it was Ernest so-and-so, you know, oiled the whatevers in, you know, April.
Ernest goes to B3 camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember learning that. So Hammond organs, do require some, annual maintenance, and you have to oil them and stuff.
Yes. I do none of that.
Do you have an organ tech down there that helps?
Man, there's a guy named Bob Wilson. And yeah, he's a fantastic organ tech. He works on the Wurlitzer piano. I believe he works on all Fame Studios stuff. All the black churches in town have B3s, and he's the guy.
Right, so the church scene means there's enough legit Hammonds to keep that going. That's great.
And he's a guru, but it's still a Hammond organ, and, you turn it on, and things are going great, and it's like, man, what? It'll start making a sound, and I just know that organ so well. I just, I know how to hit it. I hit it like Fonzie.
That's right. The Fonz. Thank you for bringing the Fonz back.
It's got the 122 cabinet.
Is the 122 the tallish cabinet?
I think so.
That's probably what I've got too down in my studio. I think there's a 122 and a 144 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's about. I'm holding my hand up about.
Yeah.
But it's about that tall.
Yeah. It's just such a great instrument. A Hammond organ is a unique and amazing sounding.
I bought it because the music I like the most it consistently has a Hammond in it.
Does it have how does the speed switch work? Maybe describe that to the rock stars. I think that's one of those things that when I work with people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll go play an organ overdub, and they're not familiar with it.
Yeah.
There's some basic things that really make it sound great versus boring. It could be helpful.
Yeah, the Leslie, you can speed it up. It has 2 speeds. Mine does anyway, fast and slow.
Yeah. And it's a switch.
Yep.
That you hit with your left hand, right? Over by the...
Correct.
So you actually have to take your hand off the cord for a second, hit the switch, and back to the cord.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not much of a B3 player, although I have played on people's albums before.
When do you hit the switch? When do you change the speed?
Just maybe a dramatic part of the song where you want that sound to come in. It's when you want to bring attention to it, maybe, and you can speed it up, slow it down. You have a volume pedal. It's like a volume pedal on a guitar. You can do swells and stuff.
Yeah,
very. There's lots of ways to express yourself. But, the trick to the B3, I've learned fairly recently is, and I've been telling people to do this, but a lot of times if it's a regular keyboard player, they want to put all their fingers, they want to do more complicated chords like maybe you would on a piano. Well, B3, a lot of times all you need is 1 or 2, maybe 3 fingers. Because, those drawbars are harmonics, they're different notes. So if you make a complex chord, when you start pulling up those drawbars, it gets way complex, you know, and sometimes the most simple, chord patterns.
That's a good way to think about it. I mean, it's a little similar to an electric guitar in that, especially if you're driving and pushing the amp, it's such a big, complex sound that's why a power chord sounds great.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what, that's a good way to think about it.
Like the power chord Rockstars is just like, it's the fundamental and a fifth on a guitar between the 2 strings, but the distortion and the complexity brings in all the other overtones. In fact, I've got like one little tube amp, and when you play a power chord on it, you can literally hear the major third.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Kind of cool sounding.
But recording a B3, it's not rocket science. I don't know if there's like a, super traditional way of miking a cabinet. I mean, I usually will put something on the bottom speaker, and then the top speaker, you have some options. You can do, mic it in stereo. Just put 1 mic on top, or maybe put 2 mics, and where they're spread out a little bit.
Yeah,
more of a stereo type thing.
I remember I had a chance to record Ian McLaughlin from the Small Faces in Mac, on a session here. In fact, it was a session produced by Ken Coomer. And when you walked up to my studio, I was like, hey, looks like Ken Coomer. I don't know if you guys know each other.
No, I don't know.
Ken's a great drummer. He was in Wilco here and
wow.
Clockhammer long before that.
Wow. Okay.
But when Mac was, when I was miking up the Leslie for the session, he came over and he was like, you know, he had an opinion about how it should be recorded for his part.
Oh, really?
He was like, and his take on it was, people always spread the mics out too far. You know, they think you mic in either side of the Leslie cabinet, but then it's too wide. He was like, just put them about the width of your ears over to one side of the Leslie, or, you know, in the center of it or whatever, but just like ear width apart so that it sounds like it does to you or to him.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know when my head's right in front of the Leslie anyway, but
yeah,
it's fun. Yeah.
I don't go super wide with it. And I try to mic it in a way where, you know, like, you know, I use 3 mics, bottom and 2 tops, and record, you know, bus them to 2 buses and record it in stereo, just in case if I'm mixing, I can just use one channel and it'll be a mono. Sometimes that's what it needs to be.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe I'll do that as we're recording, you know, it just needs to be mono, and let's just record it mono. But the trick about
it's good to think about where this lives in the final mix to make decisions like that, right?
Yeah, that's yeah, absolutely. That's how I discovered, you know, that's how I became brave enough to call myself a producer, you know, quote unquote producer, is from mixing a lot of stuff and knowing where, you know, things were going to be as we were doing it, or even before, you know, where it was going to live in the mix. You know, if something, I have no idea what we're going to do with it. You know, if someone comes up with a part and I'm not real sure, you know, where this is going to go in the mix, maybe it doesn't need to be there, you know, so maybe I'll help make that decision. Or if something's missing in the mix, you know, hey, let's try a Wurlitzer piano just to offset this guitar. And that kind of, I think mixing kind of, you know, brought me to the other side to, you know, call myself a producer.
Well, if I think about a Beatles record and, you know, these sort of like hard panned decisions, and it makes me think about how they almost never had a big wide stereo overdub, did they?
Right. I don't know. No, it seemed like it was a bunch of mono instruments.
Yeah. And so like then each part is considered more of like this musical part that's just coming from like one specific place. And then, you know, the way it all goes together is, you know, musical arrangement rather than, you know, like stereo field kind of stuff. But that to me is really powerful, and it's hard to know at times, but it's also like super liberating, because if you just think I'm just going to put mono mics on stuff, then it's like, you know, you might start thinking about this as like just a musical part that happens right here or right there, or like, you know, background vocals. I mean, you've got some of these records have got some great back BVs on them too, I think. And I think about how it's easy to think about layers of background vocals as like, okay, we're gonna just make them big and wide stereo, but we're blending all the parts together that way. And sometimes it's cool to just say, let's put the low voices over to the left and the high voices or the mid voices over to the right. And then it's like having 2 different singers right there. They're singing towards you.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Parts.
Yeah.
They can sound so cool.
Or background vocals, just have them just everybody off to one side a little bit, you know, because that's where they, you know, if you're watching a band on the stage, you know, it's going to be 2 or 3, you know, guys and girls standing together and, you know, singing, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like if everybody was coming from where the singer is, it's literally.
I've done that where there's horns on one side and background vocals on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of playing off of each other.
Yeah. And then But then it really does beg the question of like the arrangement too. Then the arrangement has to consider that at times, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like if everything's just always happening on the one side and not the other, then it can feel a little lopsided.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't record too many things in stereo. It's pretty rare. I mean, acoustic guitar, a lot of people want to record that in stereo, and I rarely find the right spot to put that, you know?
That Lamont Landers track, Love and Lust, one of the notes I put down was just a great acoustic guitar sound.
Okay.
In fact, I think that one starts out with just acoustic and voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me to ask you of how the rock stars can think about starting a song like that. So sometimes we think about like, okay, this sounds like somebody's just playing it and singing it. And sometimes it's easy to record it that way. And sometimes it needs to be recorded separately. And what are some smart ways to assemble those pieces?
The way I remember that, it was kind of a session that was becoming a little frustrating because everybody, was there and they're kind of trying to come up with a song. And I don't know, man, it just wasn't gelling. It just wasn't happening. And Lamont's like, well, here's this other song that I've been working on. And he just started playing that in the room. And it just sounded done, and it's like, yes, let's just, all right, go in the booth and do that. And everybody play with them. And it took like, it didn't take very long at all, a couple hours to do it. Most of it, we overdubbed a few things.
Would that have been the acoustic and the voice going down at the same time?
Oh, yeah,
together?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about how then let me back up. Sometimes when we're new engineers and then we've got this opportunity to do acoustic and voice, we're like, where should I put the mics? How should I set this up? What are some of the things that are smart to know about? Are there things we can do wrong doing it that way and we want to watch out for?
Oh, yeah. I've done it. If there's a wrong way, I've done it before.
Yeah, well, give us a few so that we can maybe we can shortcut this for some of these guys.
Yeah, I do. We end up doing a lot of that. Someone playing and singing.
Yeah.
And
like, what kind of mics are useful for that?
Well,
does it vary from?
It does vary.
Performer to performer?
And usually I walk around and just check out what they're doing. And sometimes they play really loud and sing really soft, or vice versa. And that matters. If they play really loud and sing soft, then I'm probably going to use something like a SM7
for the voice.
For the voice, and something else on the acoustic. Sometimes a SM81, and just got some Earthworks mics that I'm learning how to use. But sometimes if they sing very even, sometimes like I have a Flea 47, and I may be able to position in a way where it's kind of getting both the acoustic guitar and the voice, but I'll still stick a mic on the guitar just for looks.
Do you sometimes do it where it's one mic and it's getting both voice and guitar? And it's
yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
That can be a really amazing sound because it's so focused. It's so coherent, but it's also a little tricky because
it's kind of dependent.
The balance just right and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of just depends on how they sing and play.
Yeah, I remember doing that for Josh. Sorry, I'll come back with last name, but we did that, and I wanted to try that out. And we were at Quad Studios and we had this beautiful U67, and so I found the sweet spot and it sounded so amazing. But I also remembered noticing that for some reason, like as I mixed it and kind of gained it up and compressed it, the low notes on the guitar sort of would bloom a lot and almost take over. So I guess it's like if you do the one mic version, kind of like one, single mic recording a drum set, it's like everything that goes into the mic has to be just right balanced on its way in, right?
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. Consoles, analog tape, digital. Would you, if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, I wonder if I should get a console, or I wonder if I should check out a tape machine. What do you want to say about that? What advice would you give
I mean,
to that person?
do it.
Do it. That's it.
I mean, if you're feeling it, that's what, if the universe is telling you to do it, then,
What are some reasons to do it? What are some challenges if you decide to do it?
I mean, the way I work, a console is almost a necessity. Not for mixing so much, but I do a lot of tracking. And for tracking, I really still enjoy using a console.
Why? Why is it? Like, what benefits do you get from a console for tracking?
Just for me, it's still faster. If there's a, full band in the studio and they have all these mic lines coming in from all different directions, I'm still can be pretty quick at telling them where, it's like traffic control, just tell them which one to go where. And, I don't have to think about anything. I just do it.
Do you use the mic pre's that are in the console for tracking?
Sometimes, but, not so much.
So it's not necessarily about that. It could be.
Could be if
like
you have
if you had a Neve 7.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
68 or whatever, 78.
My console is an Otari console, and the mic pre's are pretty good in it, but I have a little rack off to my side with, some APIs. I have 12 channels of APIs and Chandler Limited, TG2, I think 4 channels of Neve or fake Neve, Heritage Audio with their version of the Neve thing, the more affordable one.
Now, how about let's break this down a little bit more. So for routing and how all this stuff goes together, because I think that's what trips up the brain when you're trying to think about how to use it. So you're using these outboard mic pre's, which sound great, and then did those tracks go directly to the computer and then come back from the computer to the console for the mixing, organizing, or do they go straight to the console?
I have it split up a little bit. I have, my API pre's are all identical, and they're kind of hardwired to my console. My console has line inputs, which bypasses the pre. So the first 12 channels on my console, they're just going to the API pre's first. And then everything else just acts like, a regular console. It'll hit the little fader on the inline console, and you have to tell it where to go. So
in other words, the sound of the kick and the snare that we just recorded, they're going through the mic pre, they go to the console, they're going through the console, and then they end up over at Logic.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So like that's good. And so that gives you the ability to have a little more level control and also EQ. Like
sometimes
you might not be afraid to do a little EQ.
I'm not afraid to use the console EQ.
Also, it gives you that ability to send stuff over to effects, and then the effects can be printing pretty easily.
I do that a pretty good bit. That helps singers sometimes when they want to hear reverb. So I'll pipe in some outboard reverb or something, and then I usually record the reverb. Just it's part of the sound. It's what they were hearing when they were singing it, so it's good to have.
So then that would be
another reason.
The reverb would come to the console, and then all the channels on the console just automatically sort of feed Logic. So
pretty much. I mean, there's some patching that you have to do.
But I mean, in terms of a way we might think about it, if we set it up, track 12 on the console might just feed input 12 on our session if we can set it up that way. And then that makes it really easy to think about.
And it's really using the Logic is identical to the 24 track tape machine. It's 24 inputs, 24 outputs.
Right.
So, everything that runs through the console, you have to just tell it where to go. And it's handy to be able to take that kick and snare mic. If there's 2 kick mics and top and bottom snare mics, if you want to blend them together, you can do that on the console and just do it there. And
Did
even
you say top and bottom tom mics?
Or snare mics.
Do you ever do top and bottom tom mics?
I have when I had more energy.
Yeah. I miss it. I want to bring it back. And I've done sessions where we only mic the bottom of the toms, and that was the trick.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
But it's fun to keep remembering to go back and explore that stuff. And of course, having a console makes it a little easier to make those extra decisions and then blend them together on an output or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Although then sometimes you end up with like top and bottom tom is 12 and 13, or well, that's probably too high. Probably more like 5 and 6 is maybe the top and bottom of the rack tom. But then you're like, but if we're only going to track 5 on Pro Tools, does that mean the floor tom is 7 and 8, but it's going to track 6 in Pro Tools?
Yeah. That'll melt your brain.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good rule of thumb for tracking sessions is keep the numbers the same. Rockstar.
Oh yeah,
just like
definitely.
Let number 4 be 4 on the mic panel, 4 on the console, 4 input to Pro Tools, 4 output.
Yeah, that will save you some time.
And then make sure that was the scratch vocal mic, because that's your secret mic for the drum sound.
Yeah.
Okay, what about tape?
Tape.
How do you integrate tape into your signal flow?
Well,
what's a useful way to use it?
The way I have it set up now is, like I said, the DAW and the tape machine, they're interchangeable. It's just these multi-pin connectors that go into the console, and I can either use a tape machine or I can use Logic. And
so when you're tracking to tape, we don't even have a computer in the picture yet.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no computer.
Do you have records that stay on tape and never go to computer? Or is that old school?
I mean, yeah, I do. It's not so much anymore. Tape is kind of a thing. If you get it in your system, like if it's something you want to try, you just need to try it, and you'll get it out of your system after a while. You'll get over it. I still do tapes. Tape. Yeah, I still do tape sessions.
I like all my tape machines, but I still love it.
So what I do is I'll do a tracking session. If someone else uses tape, we'll do a tracking session, on the tape, and we're taped now. And then at some point, it just turns into a pain in the ass, the tape machine. Either you run out of tracks, or you're getting ready to do vocals. I love doing vocals in Logic, as opposed, just out the comping and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just instant. Just whenever the tape machine turns into a pain in the ass, I'll just transfer everything to the computer, and then now we're on the computer.
Just this break time, everybody's in the lounge. Do you have a lounge in your?
No, no. We're savages.
Empirical Labs, creators of the iconic Distressor, offer high-performance gear for audio professionals. The Fatso, or full analog tape simulator and optimizer, brings the warmth of vintage tape and tube electronics to your digital recordings. Perfect for mixes, masters, or overdubs by adding harmonic generation, high-frequency saturation, tape emulation, and compression. The impressive new Pump, a 500 series classic knee compressor, shares its DNA with the analog Distressor and Arouser plugin. It features 8 selectable compression ratios, precise attack and release controls, saturation, a high-pass filter, and a first-time ever attack mod for added transient control, which is ideal for adding more snap to your snare drum. All Empirical Labs products are hand-assembled and tested right down to the circuit boards in northern New Jersey, USA, for durability and performance, designed to last and be easily updated. Go to empiricallabs.com to find the Arouser and Big Freak plugins, where you can use the coupon code RSR10 for 10% off. Remember to follow @Empirical Labs on Instagram, making studio gear that works a little easier, a little better, and a lot longer. Elevate your music production with the updated Complete 15 bundle from Native Instruments, featuring the new Contact 8. This comprehensive collection includes a fantastic range of versatile synths, sampled instruments, and innovative studio effects, giving you everything you need to bring your creative vision to life. Whether you're composing emotional scores, crafting deep dance floor grooves, or experimenting with unique sound design, Complete 15 has got you covered. Discover powerful plugins and instruments that guide you from the initial idea to the final mix. The included Contact 8 introduces exciting new tools like chords and phrases for instant inspiration, the Leap tool for dynamic looping, and Conflux, a cutting-edge hybrid instrument that merges organic and synth sounds in real time. Plus, enjoy revamped versions of Massive X and Guitar Rig 7 Pro to take your sound even further. Then, polish off your mixes with the AI-enhanced Isotope Ozone 11, included in the Complete 15 bundle. Use the code ROCK10 for 10% off at nativeinstruments.com. What's the area like? Is it a place where people can walk to, a coffee shop or a restaurant, or is it in residential? I mean, is it like sort of away from other
It's
things?
kind of, yeah, you could definitely walk to restaurants and stuff. It's kind of this weird little, there's a few warehouses, and, you know, my next door neighbor does car detailing, and, you know, there's a methadone clinic, you know, nearby. You know, that you know, that's where most of the drummers come from, you know. Sorry.
I'm sure that's the drummers are like, I told you that joke.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, that's cool to think about it. So, because I mean, I think there's this variety of ways to integrate a tape machine into a digital studio, and it's just nice to hear it described by somebody who's actually doing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, it seems easy. I mean, using a tape machine they were built to be very robust and easy to use. They punch great. You know, it's the MCI JH24. It's just, the reason to use it is.
Mod and all that.
What's that?
Does it have the choir mod on it?
The choir mod?
Yeah, that's the one that lets you do seamless punching, I think.
I guess. I don't know. It's really, I have no idea. I don't know. It's the AI3. I believe that's what it's called.
And then you said you have a 2-track machine for mixing down to as well, right?
Mm-hmm,
What's that guy?
That's an Otari MTR 10.
Okay, cool.
Quarter-inch.
1/4-inch 2-track, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is it a tabletop or like a vertical stand-up?
Yeah,
box?
it stands up.
Or is it on wheels, on its own rack?
Yeah,
wheels
it's on its own thing.
And then do you always mix the tape? Or is that, again, another choice?
Not lately, no.
Sometimes. Or what about slap? You ever set it up for like a slap echo and a delay?
I've done that before, yeah.
Also, you mentioned the console and sending to reverb. So that would imply that the reverb is an actual outboard reverb unit. What kind of stuff do you find fun to have for the studio?
I have this reverb that I just love. It's and I inherited. Well, I didn't really inherit. I bought it from Johnny's estate. It's a Lexicon 300.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember those?
No, not maybe.
I'm not sure when it was around, but it was late 80s, maybe early 90s digital reverb Lexicon. I think it's just beautiful. And it's kind of sentimental to me because it was Johnny Sandlin's reverb, and just working in his studio for so long, it was always there, and I loved it back then. And, oh my gosh, this reverb!
Is it like a 1 or 2 space?
It's a 2-space Lexicon unit. I love it.
Yeah.
So don't tell anybody about those. I don't know anybody
all
uses
gone
them.
now.
I have a little, and these are hip now, but it's AccuVerb spring reverb. Is a thing they made in the 90s, I think.
Is it one of the spring? So I have a Master Room 121 XL or something spring reverb, and it was sort of proud of itself for not going boing.
Oh,
Is yours one that
oh,
goes boing happily and proudly, or is it one that tries not to go boing?
I like the boing,
Yeah.
but yeah, you have to hit it pretty hard to get the boing. But
Yeah.
it'll do the boing.
Spring reverbs are so great. We were doing one of our weekend sessions, and Kevin White brought in his Fender spring reverb,
Mm-hmm.
which is, intended to have the guitar run through it.
Yeah.
Which I guess must be a different line level than a
Mhm.
mixing reverb. But we were also just like resending sounds through it and like putting them back and trying to do like the King Tubby thing, and it was really fun.
Oh yeah, and I mean this one that I have, I keep it out of a rack because it does accept the guitar level signals, and a lot of that is on the drop diver stuff.
Yeah,
The AccuVerb.
AccuVerb. Do you prefer an AccuVerb or an inAccuVerb? All right, so let's see. Logic, and you talked about comping vocals in Logic. How would you describe the way that works for somebody who's never comped a vocal in Logic?
Logic by default has just the track stacks. That's what they call it, and so if you do one take from beginning to end, that's your number one stack, I guess, or track. And then if any words you punch in on, it'll just visually, and the Pro Tools I'm sure has their equivalent to this, but you can visualize the takes. You can if you hear one word, say you have 3 or 4 vocal takes, if there's one word that kind of rubs you the wrong way, that is, visually is very easy just to highlight. Let me just listen to that word from, take number 3 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really quick. And
if you punch in on a track, does it actually create that new punched word as like a take 5 down below that it's sort of inserted for you or something? Is that the way it works?
Yeah. And you'll hear the newest punch, it'll just add a new stack.
Right. Which that's kind of hip. Pro Tools does not do that. Pro Tools just punches in on the track you're on.
Okay, well, good.
But I kind of like
I have mixed and recorded in Pro Tools, and it's like, God, I know this does that somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a preference that I don't have turned on and haven't for 30 years. But there could be it could be there. But that's a cool concept. I mean, sometimes it confused me when I would punch in on Logic, and I'm like, why is it down here, not up here or something? But I think now that you're describing it, it makes sense. It's like you want the punch on the track you're working on, but wouldn't it be nice to have that show up as just one of your alternate takes so you could still like go find it later and find the other versions and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite thing.
And then when you're
about
comping, though, do you sort of do it with just button clicks, or do you just sort of use the mouse and go highlight out one of the ones you want?
Yeah, just mouse and highlight, and I mean, most of it is on the fly, I mean, I'll know what I like. And, if we get down the mixing stage and something bugs me, then okay, now let's see if we have a better take of that word or something like that.
What about vocal tuning and those kind of things? Does that enter your world down there?
Not so much. I don't go nuts on it. I mean, it's easy to. Sometimes you listen to these records and it's like, my God, how can they possibly tune the vocals that much? Can this person not sing at all?
Right.
And then I'll get in my studio, I'll work on something, and there'll be like one word, let me just touch up that word just a little bit. And then it's like, well, the word going into it is probably could use a little help too. And then, the first chorus, happens. Maybe check that out. And, next thing you know, you spent, 3.5 hours. It sounds like a robot.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful with it. I have gone down that road before and had to just reset everything.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the post-production decisions, like mix decisions, like at the front end of it, like, trying to not have any mistakes in anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same thing. It's like the moment you discover that you could keep messing with it, you do keep messing with it. And
you
discover what too far
And we
is.
all, engineers, we always say, auto-tune sucks. I never, we just do a little bit of it, and I'm not going to use hardly any of it. And then, but we all end up at some point kind of overdoing it a little bit. Then you have
I'm real good at this. I'm fucking great at this.
You'll have to reel it back.
Let me see here. Here's a silly question. Listening to the Camacho Broken Bridge track, I wrote down, so it's like a dueling, like double guitar band. I think that might be the one that has like a picked bass. It just sounds like, it's like a good, classic kind of rock band sound.
Okay.
Should the band sit or stand while they're tracking?
Ooh, that's a good question. Stand. I like giving direct answers. Yeah, stand, definitely stand.
Yeah. What happens if they what makes you think of a reason to stand?
Well, they stand at their gigs.
Right.
There's
energy to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've found that there are times where sometimes the part needs more precision and care. So sitting helps me. I mean, I always think about it as the player, Sitting maybe helps me. Also, it's funny how like when you really get into guitar tuning too, you start noticing like sloppy sitting makes the guitar go out of tune. Sitting nice and upright makes it well tuned. But standing is like, you got to put the energy in the track.
Well, and of course, a lot of times bands are in the studio for, 12 hours straight trying to go through a song, and it's a long time to stand.
James Irvin, Not Safe from Anything. Cool track. There's some great sort of like 70s Cars style.
Okay, yeah.
Lines and that stuff. What's the story with some of those cool sounds?
Well, James is he's one of my favorite people. He's my drummer. He's like the studio drummer. And he's somebody I've, got to work with a lot in the studio. And I just, every time I would work with him, I was like, man, I want to make a rock record on this guy. And so those albums are pretty much James playing everything. And
great singing voice too.
Yeah. I mean, he can do everything. He's insane. And that keyboard, I mean, he just has this really, I mean, it looks like it's a Korg or mini Korg,
like modern
thing.
Modern one.
No, it's super old.
Oh, is that?
I mean, it's held together by tape. And
it's not the mini Korg with the vocoder mic sticking out of the top. That's sort of modern-ish.
I think it's like older than that.
15 years.
I believe it only does one note at a time, or maybe just two or three.
Yeah.
But he really wanted to add that monster to some of his songs, and of course it's really cool. Then we started doing other songs where he was like, "Oh man, we used that thing on you. We used it before. Maybe we shouldn't use it now." And I realized that that's kind of part of your sound. I think you need to use it as much as possible. Work it. Yeah, work it. It's your thing.
Yeah, it is funny how that can be a question that we ask ourselves when we're making records. It's like, did we already use up that one trick?
That one trick.
And yet there can also be records that we go back and listen to where maybe we knew the hit single from the band. This has happened to me before, where I'll go back and I'll listen to the hit. And I'll be like, yeah, cool. And then I go listen to the rest of the record and I'm like, fuck, they did the same thing on every song. This just happened to be the one that was the hit.
Oh,
you know? Yeah. And then it's funny because it's like, what's wrong with that? I mean, they had a hit.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so actually, that was in your intro. You said the goal is to win Grammys and make hits. What does that mean?
Well, it's good to have a goal,
What's the difference between having a goal of making Grammys and or winning Grammys and making hits
Well, hits
and not
are,
having the goal?
and not having a goal?
Yeah, it's not meant to be a trick question, but just like if we got a goal like that, what does that imply?
That we take things seriously. And I mean, I don't necessarily take myself very seriously, but I do take music very seriously. I take somebody else's music very seriously. If someone asks me to do work on their music, that's like an honor, that's their baby, and it's in my hands and they need my help, But to answer your question, it's just kind of, it's my way of saying, I'm every person that I work with, I take very seriously.
Yeah. So we're not just going to dial it in.
Exactly. And, where I live, I'm not surrounded.
I mean, actually, we are going to just dial it in. We're not going to phone it in. That's what I meant. But of course, nobody uses the phone anymore.
Yeah.
We're not just going to text it in.
But where I live, I mean, I don't live in a music center like Nashville, where there's so many accomplished, musicians, songwriters, whatever. I've had to learn, you have to be patient and give people a chance and give them a chance to grow. You have to be able to develop them.
Just took a live selfie on the phone, on the podcast Rockstars. I wanted to get a picture of Jeremy while he's wearing his classic Radio Shack hat.
Oh,
during the interview.
Oh yeah,
really
I'm
good.
representing the shack.
Repping. Do you guys still have a shack down there?
No, we don't.
Those were good. Those were good.
It's
times.
amazing. I walk around the studio and how much Radio Shack things that I still have that I use every day.
Do you remember having to jet over to the Radio Shack to go pick up a TLO 73 IC chip?
No.
I don't even know if I said the name right.
I know what you're talking
top
about.
Of my head.
I had a Soundcraft console at one point, and I think they were loaded with those.
Yeah. There's a Soundcraft 32-channel console directly below you.
Oh, is it really?
Basement, yeah.
Which one is that?
It's my DC 2000.
Oh yeah, those are pretty cool.
It's a great board, and I just I'm just keeping it until I can figure out where it goes, because it really does sound great, and even the mic pre's sound great on that thing.
Yeah, that's one of those things that it's kind of like the Atari console. I mean, I don't know if what you need to do is like make a hit record.
I've been telling myself that.
And but you got to make it on the Soundcraft, and then you can just sell the Soundcraft for like a couple $100,000 or something.
Hell yeah! And then I'll get then I'll move down to Alabama.
Oh yeah,
get a house, put in a studio. Hetty Brew.
Oh, okay.
Great rock drums.
That's James Irvin playing drums on that.
That is?
Yeah, that's my guy.
Well, it's not like in your face, but I can tell. I have a trained ear now, so I can tell that there's like a careful use of reverb on the snare as part of that mix.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about some go-to things that kind of help that work.
Okay. That one actually was, for some reason, I remember that one was mixed on the console. So that reverb probably was Yamaha SPX 990.
Ooh, a 990. Oh, that's one of those more modern. Modern.
It's like the 90, but it was the better one.
9 times better.
Yeah.
Are you sick of searching for the right cable only to realize it doesn't even exist? Or maybe you're asking yourself, how in the world do I hook my studio up? Well, say goodbye to those headaches, because Trace Audio can get you wired up right. Based in Nashville, but serving studios nationwide and around the world, Trace Audio specializes in custom cables, labels, and wiring solutions. From labeling your patch bay to wiring your full studio or large format console, Trace Audio does does it all, whether you're a home or pro studio owner. And the real game changer is Trace Audio's custom patch bay label designer. It's a one-stop tool to color code, organize, and design labels for your 1/4-inch or XLR patch bays. No more wondering where things are on your patch bay, when instead you can have sleek, professional labels that are easy to read and easy to use. Try the free online patch bay label designer at traceaudio.com and use the code RSR15 to get 15% off your custom labels and take your studio to the next level.
Did you know that one of the most common fears with audio mastering is not knowing if your mix is ready or not? Look, nobody wants to send a mix in for mastering only to realize there's some resonating low end that's going on that wasn't picked up in the mix. That's where I come in. Hi, I'm Brian Murphy of Sound Porter Mastering. As soon as you send a mix for me to listen to, I'm already on your team. Mix feedback and master readiness is a service I offer for free and for good reason. That's because a great mix produces an even greater master. So if I can help you minimize oddities and issues and even provide some advice that will help your mix translate better, then mastering becomes more efficient and effective. And you don't stress about those issues at all. Just go to soundporter.com. There you can find videos, a FAQ, and a pre-mastering checklist on my website that will explain a lot of what you need to know. When you're ready for great feedback, just reach out via my low-friction contact form and send me a mix to hear. Again, you can find me at soundporter.com.
And what kind of sounds, like I can just picture us, we're in there, we're like flipping through all these patches, like, oh my God. And it's like Hall, Plate, Taj Mahal. And you're like, well, I don't know what, none of these sound like that rock mix I listened to. What are useful starting places for?
Patch number 19 and number 20.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. Right down to the answer. What style of reverb would that be?
One of them is a longer verb, and the other one's a shorter verb.
Okay, so longer. Do we want to try the ones that are called room, or is it fuck room? Do we want the ones that are called non-lin?
Right. I think 20 might be the longer one, and it's a room. And 19, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's the shorter one, and it may be more of a plate type thing.
Yeah, and do you ever find that they just come right out of the box sounding just right?
Oh,
or
yeah,
do they need a little EQ and do they need to hit a compressor in the mix or anything like that? No. What about if we're doing this in the box mixing digitally? Like I imagine you were just describing at the console. Something nice about consoles is sometimes consoles sort of like make it all come together and sound more right. Mm-hmm. Do you find sometimes creating sounds like that in the computer mix? Like, do you find plugins to be as readily correct when you pull up a sound like that, or do you have to fight for it a little harder?
I start with, if I was going to do a similar sound to that in a plugin, I feel like I have some of their presets in my head that
are really, what it's supposed to sound like.
They're really close, and that's why I use that plugin, because I'm thinking of that preset, And
which plugin?
Oh, whatever the reverb plugin may be at that moment,
Right, I see.
The Universal Audio AMS reverb.
Is that the R2D2 robot plate?
No, that's a plate. Yeah, no, it's what is that thing?
Oh, the AMS, AMS verb. The AMS 16 is that thing. One of those is the verb, one's the delay.
Yeah, that has some pretty good 80s sounding snare reverbs.
Yeah.
Then the pre-delay does a lot. To make it happen.
Right. You got to scoot it back away from the hit of the snare a little bit, right?
Yep. On that particular plug-in.
So it's kind of like you hit the snare and then the verb just sort of rushes in right after the snare to fill the gap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can fill it out, time it, whatever it takes.
Okay. Another one, Hetty Brew. Okay. I Saw Her Face. Great up-tempo stuff too. It just reminded me to ask about being in the control room and helping make sure that the band arrives at the right tempo for the song when they're tracking. Is that a common thing? Do you find that amateur new bands have a tendency to need to be guided, faster in the studio or anything like that? Or vice versa? I feel like it's usually faster, right?
Usually faster. The younger, the faster, as you know. If a band is going through a song and it feels a little anxious, a little too anxious, I'll, usually I have my app, where I'm tapping the tempo, just seeing what it is, and maybe I'll write it down, where they're at right now.
Like an iPhone app?
Yeah.
Do you know which one it is?
Well, I can tell you.
I use one called Tempo, actually.
I think that may be the exact one.
But I'm sure there's a bunch of them out there. That's the one, Tempo?
Yeah. If they're playing through a song, and I'll just look at what they're playing it at now, at this moment, and maybe make a note of it. If it feels a little fast, I'll say, hey, let's try it, a little bit slower.
Oh, that begs the question. When you're tracking to tape, where does do you feed a click to the band, and where does that click come from?
If I'm going to tape, I'll
still have the Logic session.
I have to fire up the computer. I have to give in and actually have that glowing screen off to my side.
And then that click track is just kind of feeding through the console out to the headphones.
So
it doesn't. Would you send the click also to a track on the tape machine so that you've got it there?
Oh yeah. I'll record it. Record the click. Dead space. Marker.
We're thinking. Well, it does remind me, when I would do that, I would print the click to the tape machine, but I quickly learned that I really only needed like that very first click on the tape machine to just line it back up to the click in the Pro Tools session when I had loaded it back in. Because honestly, the tape machine's not going to stay in perfect sync with the Pro Tools click anyway.
It doesn't, does it? It's amazing how close it can be, though.
Yeah.
But I don't really use a click so much
with bands. So a lot of the records we would hear in there don't have a click going.
I would say most of them probably don't.
Ooh, that's cool. So Rockstars, definitely go check out the playlist and hear what a bunch of music sounds like if there's not a click. Trying to pin down all these musicians all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a click. So much modern music just is like, of course you have to have a click. Of course. But we just forget that it has a huge impact on the quality of the energy in the music and what's possible. And when you just get great players playing together, they don't need a click. Their click is the other musicians in the band.
They're either really great or really bad. That determines. Sometimes bands can't handle. Playing with the click, they just go to pieces.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes they're so good you don't want to change it. But tempo is it's a part of music. It's a part of. It's the same thing as pitch. If it fluctuates, then that's human.
Yeah.
And, the people I record, play live a lot, and at least the people I record, I know people are more and more doing this, but people don't play gigs with a click usually, or at least the people
it kind of sucks when they do.
Yeah. And I don't want to, change what they do. That said, the tempo is very important for any song and the feel for it. And like we said, a lot of times, especially with young bands, they start to rush and get excited. They're kind of nervous about being in a studio. Something about being in a studio makes you want to play faster. It's okay to slow it down a little bit and take notes. And I'll listen to them play. And if something feels really good, like if something starts to... I don't know, whatever that is. I'll definitely make a note. Okay, this felt really good at 122. Let's do that. Let's start there. And sometimes I'll record, I'll just have this tempo app, I'll have 122 playing, and I'll hit the talk back mic, okay, we're rolling, tick, 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 and
Right. It's just like a reminder at the start
yeah.
of what tempo to start at, and that's all you need.
Yeah. Or if I know they're going to rush, maybe I'll start it at, 120 or something, and maybe
that's interesting.
Maybe by the end of
Tell them it's 122.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's hilarious. Because they're going to start out a little faster anyway. I've heard the most hilarious count offs in the studio when people don't know what they're doing. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Or in songs in 3.
Yeah. My buddy Roger Nichols, Alan Nichols, he had a funny story about it. Somebody coming into the, telling them that something was in 7/8, and they're all looking at him like, "What?" He's like, "It's in 7/8, man. Listen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7." Or like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. All right. Let me jump to these closing questions real fast. When you started out in recording, what do you feel like was holding you back?
Holding me back.
Just the fear of doing this podcast one day?
Yes. I mean, there's always, so, I come from Alabama, and there's that's the difference between, a music center like Nashville and Alabama, where Nashville, there's a legit industry that people, are employed and, make money. Doing music, and you go to the Nashville airport and the carpet's shaped like guitars,
Right.
In Alabama, it's, people expect you to do something different, like just, sell insurance or, be a rocket engineer or,
Right. Right. Space happens.
Yeah.
Down there.
So, there is a little bit of a, I don't know, just not a lot of resources for, what we do. I mean, it's kind of becoming more and more. I mean, the community college over there has a real good music production program now, which didn't exist. I mean, I think every college has that now.
Maybe a good tip for a place like that is don't piss off the one guy with the one studio in town. Make sure
Yeah.
Make sure he likes you. So,
there's a lot of studios.
Or she likes you. So
there's a lot of studios in Alabama.
There's a lot of studios in Alabama, right? But what about where you were, though?
Oh,
in Decatur?
Back then?
Yeah.
I mean, there's always been a few, but, I did get to work at the one studio, the duct tape studio.
The cool one.
Yeah.
All right. How about some of the best advice you remember receiving?
So something I learned from Johnny, one time, and I hadn't been working with him very long, but he let me do a rough mix of a song. Finally, I get to mix something. And
why are you calling this rough?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember there wasn't a lot going on in the studio that day, so I sat down, started mixing this song, and then about 10 hours later, I had to pee. So I got up to pee, and then I mixed probably for another couple more hours. It's done, masterpiece. And the whole time I was mixing, I was kind of thinking about what he would do and how he, what compressor he used and how he EQ'd stuff and where he panned stuff. And anyway, I gave it to him, all proud of it. Of course, he hated it, and, it was kind of crushing. I mean, he was nice about it, but he didn't like it at all. And then a couple months later, same opportunity came up, another song, and I was like, well, screw it. He's not going to like what I do anyway, so I'm just going to mix it how I would mix it. And he actually liked that one. I mean, it kind of taught me to just mix how you hear it. Don't try to think about how someone else will mix it, And, that was, that changed a lot for me, how I think of mixing anyway.
Yeah, that's good. I like that advice of like, the more true we are to ourselves, the better results
exactly.
we get, right?
Yeah, I could have put it a little more simple like you did. But
no, that's all right. Mine is too short. You can't. It's like not even long enough for a sound pipe.
Yeah, mix how you hear it.
Yeah, mix how you hear it. I like it. How about a recording tip, hack, or secret sauce? Something the rock stars could use on their next session.
A recording hack. Oh, here's a good one. All right. So I have a good flow of singers and musicians that come through the studio. Well, when I record a singer, you may want to put up 2 or 3 mics, just to see which one's best for their voice, and maybe, try a different compressor or something. And I don't know why it took me 20 years to figure this out, but I just started writing down their name and what their chain is, So the next time they come in, at least I know that's my starting point. If it doesn't sound good, do something different.
For 15 years, I owned a famous MCI console that came from Criteria Studio C in Miami, where it made many Grammy-winning records in the 1970s, and it sounded amazing. When I was ready to upgrade my studio to full digital mixing, I decided to team up with Rick Carson at Make Believe Studio, Metric Halo, and Golden Ear producer Bill Simzik to recreate the legendary MCI console as the new MBSI plugin. This isn't just another boring plugin. The MBSI captures that same iconic sound that was used on multi-million selling records like Hotel California for the Eagles, produced by Bill Simzik, Saturday Night Fever and Stayin' Alive for the Bee Gees, I Shot the Sheriff for Eric Clapton, We're an American Band for Grand Funk Railroad, and the soundtrack to Grease, and was loved by legendary producers like Tom Dowd, Todd Rundgren, and Bill Simzik, to name just a few. The MBSI plugin not only delivers the authentic sound of the original MCI console faithfully, but it also adds new features like a top-notch compressor, overdrive, and a high and low-pass filter switch. Features I always wished that the console had. Now you too can get that Grammy-winning MCI sound in your home studio, just like me. Whether you're recording or mixing, you can experience the sound of Miami 1976 with the MBSI plugin and soak up a little sunshine in your sound. Go to makebelievestudio.com/MBSI. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak or distant or lack punch or clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio using free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is that these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you're using. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can use the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Where's this great tip. If you write something down, where do you find it useful so that when they do come in, you remember where the hell you put that, you wrote down?
I have it taped sometimes to the wall. No, it's just not
taped to the wall. I love it. Yeah. I used to keep, when I had the console and the tape machine, I'd have track tape, from the console.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd put that tape it onto the back of the racks, and it was fun to have that around for a while.
Yeah.
No more of that now. It's all computers.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, but I'm also like I said, I'm also, rather than missing the way I used to do it, I'm just excited about trying these new ways of doing stuff too.
I went for a while without a console, so you'll be back.
I'll be back. All right, cool. How about a favorite hardware tool, something physical that is fun to have for sessions?
A favorite hardware tool.
You just said a console, so that's one possibility.
Favorite hardware tool.
Just anything physical. Like I'm holding a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
I find that really useful sometimes.
Oh my God. I'm going to have a, you know what?
Radio Shack hat?
Close. I have this is something affordable. Go get you a Radial, was it J45? I believe, direct box.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I love that direct box.
That's just the DI box?
Just the DI box. Affordable. I have a Wurlitzer piano. It wasn't sounding I don't know. It was pretty good. It's a Wurlitzer. It sounds really good. But for some reason, when I started using that, just changed the direct box. It was like a different instrument. I don't know. And it makes me want to check every direct box that I have in my studio.
But this is like a digital piano.
No, it's a old school black Wurlitzer 200, A200 or something like that.
Okay, the Whirly, yeah.
The Whirly.
And it's just changing out the DI to a better DI just gave it the tone that you were
it changed that. I don't know what's going on, but it changed that instrument.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that. I've had, I think, sometimes when we start our studios, we have to get so much new stuff and we're always looking for bargains and deals. And so like getting a cheap DI would have been the first place I started. I mean, I took a free one from the other studio and they threw it out because it didn't work.
Okay.
And I took it and held onto it for a decade trying to get it to work and finally just upgraded.
Well, the cool thing about having the studio, it's been around for a long time, that everything that's in the studio is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And
do you have to purge every once in a while?
I hang on to stuff, man. I'm a hoarder.
Do you have space? So you got a studio with, I mean, it's tricky if you have a small studio to hold on to everything, I find, but if I had a storage room just with, I'd love to have it look like I'd like to have a grocery store actually. I just want a grocery store worth of shelves and you walk through and go get the gear you want.
Oh yeah.
How about a favorite software tool? Anything that's been super fun for you, plug-in world, any of that stuff? Or anything you're excited about right now?
You know what? I'm going to go with the first thing that popped in my head. And Logic has this feature called Mastering Assistant. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's their version. I know Isotope is doing this too, which I haven't tried that. And I think I'm gonna, just haven't been able to yet, but very helpful. It's a tool. You know what I mean? Like, we recording engineers have to master our own stuff a lot, more so than ever. I still don't think it's ideal, but you just have to do it out of necessity. And, that thing, you just highlight, your region of where the song lives and then just analyze it. And it will tell you a few things. The most important thing that's for me is just level. You read about luffs and stuff, and it doesn't make sense to me for years, and I still don't know what that is or what it means. But I feel like it's telling me what Apple wants it to be, Apple Music. This is the volume that Apple expects it to be, and that's very helpful for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes it does an EQ thing I'm skeptical about. But sometimes it's better. So I usually have to dial it back a little bit. And sometimes I'm just thinking, they're just doing a smiley face EQ thing.
Right.
But if it sounds a little better, then I'm like, all right, well, how can I achieve this with my mix,
Right. Go back to the mix and try and make those same decisions.
Maybe like if I make the snare drum a little brighter, is it going to bring up the top end a little bit? So, it's just, it's a tool. It's a good starting place. I still have stuff mastered by, real mastering engineers if I need to.
You got any favorite people you find yourself going back to?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff on the playlist was, I know the Lamont Landers. That was Jeff Pesh, and he's in London. He's Abbey Road, London, Jeff Pesh. The Drop Diver stuff is Howie Weinberg, LA guy, the loud as hell.
Funny dude. He's always doing those videos with like Stephen Slate.
Oh yeah,
goofing around. I think it was with Stephen Slate. Okay, how about a resource or a tip for the business side of this? What if rock stars would like to make music and records for more than just a hobby?
Well, I think this goes with any self-employed person. If you want to get ahead and be successful, and not that I don't think I'm, I'm maintaining, but I think to be self-employed, you have to work 80 hours a week.
There you go.
And if you don't want to work 80 hours a week, then,
go get a real job.
Yeah, you don't. And if you love your job, 80 hours is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I was going to spend my 80 hours on anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think last year I had maybe 6 off days. And, you know, I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but, you know, I know what it's like to, you know, have a look at your calendar. It's like, oh my God, I'm not off until 3 weeks from now. And then you finally get that one off day and it's like by, 1:30 p.m. It's like, man, I'm bored.
Is today an off day or is today a work day?
Today, I'm calling this work.
Yeah, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So,
how about an organizational tip? Something that helps us, whether it's something you do in the studio or something you use online or whatever. How do we keep our shit together?
I am the world's worst at that. That's like constant chaos. I'm not going to give out any organizational tips.
Maybe the takeaway is, despite, creative chaos, which a lot of us embrace whether we want to or not, making a great record is quite possible.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it.
One thing that I do that helps is, like, Monday mornings are usually kind of quiet around my place. And so I'll just organize my thoughts on Monday morning, and I'll get my little yellow pad and I'll just make notes. I'll write down, think about each project, maybe open them up, and this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. Or this is who I need to call. This is who I need to talk to. And I'll try to check off that list.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing I do that's, remotely close to being organized.
And you said you're married. Do you have kids as well?
Yep, I have 2 girls. Yeah, 2 kids.
Right on. And did you find a way to create space for work and create space for family?
Oh yeah, it's hard, and I wish sometimes you just got to go to work and you miss a kid's recital, and that sucks. I've had to miss funerals and birthday parties, and that sucks.
Do you find that weekends are for working, rocking, or weekends are typically for personal life?
I mean, I'm working every weekend, but I definitely have been able to make time for things, and and I'm working. I'm a little older now. My kids are almost out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets a little easier as they get older. You get a little more freedom to work.
Right,
when they were younger, yes, I wasn't working, 80 hours a week.
I remember so many days, like, Wednesday, I was always like working till the last 15 minutes and I'm sprinting out the door. If I had somebody there or an intern with me, I was just like, get the fuck out.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
Lock the door, race off to the car, race off to school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For pickup and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's hard at a certain age, a certain time in your life as a dad to balance those things, but it gets easier.
Yeah.
And
it is a great lesson, though. I mean, I'm so grateful that I was forced to have to figure those things out.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, I was just going to keep doing the same thing I always did when I was in my 20s.
I mean, when the kids were real little, I had a, in the vocal booth, I had one of those pack and play baby bed things, and I put a mic in there, and the mic was hooked up to the console. So if the baby started crying, a little meter would start blinking.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's amazing.
And
so
I could be mixing and, there's the thing, there's the blinking lights going off.
Awesome. All right. So this last question is hypothetical. We're going to take the Wayback Studio machine. You get to go back in time, find young Jeremy and say, listen, Master Stevens, I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice do you think you'd like to go back and give yourself if you could?
Oh, well, the number one thing would be, don't buy that tube tech compressor. And then the next thing would be, always trust yourself. And it's okay to trust if there's someone who comes in your life that you trust and that you believe in, tell that person. And, if that person is you, if it's yourself, tell yourself that you trust yourself, and sometimes I feel like the universe points you in a direction to do things, and just go do it.
Yeah.
And, I feel like just looking back to the times, there's been a lot of times I thought this is an off the wall thing that I wouldn't normally do. So maybe I shouldn't do it. But the times where I felt like I should just do it anyway, and it always worked out.
Do you ever think about stopping making records?
No.
Right on. Well, dude, it's been an absolute blast hanging out with you, man. Thank you so much for driving all the way up here to Pod Damn It Studios and the Jeremy Stevens Memorial Podcasting Studio.
Okay.
Just in time for the interview. Let the rock stars know, how can they, if they want to learn more about you, if they want to reach out, or if they just want to simply come down to Clearwave and make a badass record in Decatur,
well, thank you,
Alabama. What should they do?
The studio website, 10tonrecords.com or clearwavestudios.com. Get you the same spot. There's a lot of information there, and have at it. Have fun.
Bring your band.
Buy some hats from the
What if they
store.
don't have a band? Could you put together a killer band for
We have
people
some
coming
great
down?
musicians down in Alabama.
Yeah.
They'll freak you out and blow your mind.
Awesome.
James Irvin.
Very cool. Well, dude, thanks for hanging with us, Rockstars. Thanks for listening. And I'm only mildly disappointed I didn't get to make the 2-hour drive and come down to your
Well,
studio.
you're welcome to come down anytime. Absolutely.
All right, cool, dude. Well, we'll see you down there.
Okay.
All right, cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this show possible. Isotope, Native Instruments, Atom Audio, Empirical Labs, Sound Porter Mastering, and Trace Audio. And remember to take advantage of our special coupon codes. At isotope.com and nativeinstruments.com, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plug-in purchase. At empiricallabs.com, use the code RSR10 for 10% off the Arouser and Big Freak plugins. And finally, use the code RSR15 to get 15% off your custom patch bay labels at traceaudio.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in our show notes, because it's a great way to help support this show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio, and they're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars: Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and Liz Hulitskaya. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.